Yeah, she's just saying that. She's breathing. Huh? Yeah. No one's gonna be mad at them. I will be.
All right, good evening. Welcome to the November 13th, 2024 Instructional Committee meeting. We've got some great things on our agenda this evening, but first let's start with a quick attendance. In attendance tonight is our board members Jess Campbell, Sarah Robinson, and myself, Brenda Hastings. Absent is board member Barb Higgins. From administration, we have Assistant Superintendent John Fabrizio and Superintendent Kathleen Murphy. First on our agenda this evening is some business course proposals that will be presented to us by Nicole Barnett and Tim Herbert. I didn't see Tim.
No, Tim.
Okay, just Nicole. Yeah. Not just Nicole.
No.
But wonderful.
The mastermind.
There we go.
The brilliance
okay,
that is this trio.
And just to be an extra pain in the butt, you gotta like talk into the microphones. It is what it is.
Go for it. They all work.
Oh, we going?
No, we're good. Oh, see.
We're good.
We're gonna take care of you.
Hi, I'm Nicole Barnett. I am the facilitator for the Math and Business Department at the Concord High School. I have with me Danielle Hillstrow and Stephen Canali, both business teachers at the high school. We're going to present to you two new courses that we're looking to hopefully have approved for next school year. Some history around the business department. We are currently we're in year 2 of having the CRTC having adopted a business program. So our enrollment for the business program at the high school, Concord High Business, did decline a little bit when that happened. At that same time, we also had a money management course that was a full year business course, of 1 credit course, that also had an algebra credit attached to it. So when the CRTC moved to adopt a business program happened, we also removed the the math credit for that elective course. And then it also dropped down to a 0.5 credit. So that's a personal finance course now. So personal finance of 0.5, which was a 1.0 and had math, no longer has math attached to it for credit. So we had a lot of enrollment situations because the programming was changing, and so we've taken last year and this year to present new programs and build back up the business department and the course offerings for students at the high school. So the first up, do we want to do sports management?
Sure.
First up, sports management is a half credit, so it's a semester course. Offering to students in grades 10 through 12 as an elective. I guess we can take it from there. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so this is a class that I know that Danielle had been saying there has been a lot of student interest over the years, right? She has the institutional knowledge there. But we have this really interesting opportunity where we have a course on sports literature, and we have a course on sports statistics, and those classes are getting requested by a lot of students. They're some of the more popular classes in the school. And so we thought this is a really good opportunity to loop a lot of those students in, but provide an opportunity to catch a glimpse of something that is really encompassing a lot of different skills, and is a pretty popular college major. I know at my undergrad institution, UMass, it's one of the largest majors that they have in the business program. Super competitive, and it requires a ton of skills. I mean, you have to have calculus credits to go in and take that program. So we think that this is something that will generate a lot of student interest, and it has really neat learning opportunities that go beyond the classroom for us.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Is there-
Do you want to run
have
through
any
it?
questions?
Um,
We can.
Give us a little bit
Oh,
of
sure.
the history and how you came up with this?
Yeah, Danielle, did you want to do that part, or, I mean, only because it was,
She would love
I
to.
prefer no.
okay, love it, okay. So, as Stephen had said, there's been significant interest in running a course like this over the past 5,
Yes, 10
10
or
years,
more.
10 years or more. There were just other interests at the school at the time that were that were there. And when CRTC had that change in their programming, that has allowed us to create more opportunities for students to try different pathways and avenues. This course was developed on paper mostly by Leslie Berry, a PE teacher and health science teacher at the high school. She has been doing a lot of work with pathways as part of her job. And so she had looked into Bow School District, and they have a course offering similar to this. So when they were looking through the nuts and bolts of it, they were like, oh, this isn't a PE course. This is a business course. And so she handed it off, and they took the reins from there.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna ask, any budgetary impact? People are gonna ask.
I mean, so the only impact for it is restoring the business department to the 2.0 full-time educator.
Gotcha. And how many do we currently have for that, Kathleen? Do you know? That's
So
okay.
we're running at
1.6.
1.4.
And you'll need a 0.6.
1.4, so we'd need a 0.6. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we're borrowing, so Stephen currently is working as a 0.4 business, a 0.2 life studies, and a 0.4, no, I can't do math.
0.4 algebra.
And a 0.4 math.
That all adds to one.
Yeah. Whatever that.
I'm a community organizer. I don't do
Yeah.
math. That's what you all are good at. Cool, because, that's on our end. People are going to ask about that, and this budget season is like really worried. So just wanted to preemptively say that to anybody presenting things to us, that we're like between a rock and a hard place right now. But this is really, really cool, and I anticipate it being incredibly popular. It was like when I was in high school, everyone I knew wanted to take a course like this, and they did. We had like sports statistics, like get out of town. Like every boy aged 12 to 18 wants to take that course, you know what I mean? So yeah, this is awesome, and tip of the hat to the educator that you mentioned who designed it, and it's clearly in very good hands. So thank you for bringing it forward.
And it's possible that we have a 2.0 budget for staffing in the budget now?
A 0.2?
Because a 0.2 because they were at that, is that correct? Or did
They
that?
were at,
See, Dr. Herbert knows. There he is. Come on up, man.
Talk to us about FTE.
So we
Yeah.
shuffled the FTE into lessen class sizes in another department. By doing so, I mean, we are full-time employing Mr. Canale, but the reality would be once we have these full enrollment in the business courses to bring them back to the 2.0, it will cause some class sizes to go up, but we're not talking like 30 students in a classroom. We're talking going up from, 21 to 24 or from 18 to 21.
Okay. All right,
That's
and we're
great.
not talking toddlers here. I mean, even though sometimes they can act like it, if we're being honest.
But
Okay.
are you, to answer Sarah's question, are you telling me that you're shifting that will not, they will not see an increase in staff in the budget?
That
Because
is-
that's her real.
that is what I'm saying,
They're facing
Sarah.
that in another month, and
Oh, then
2 years ago.
whatever you want is yours.
So,
I like that answer.
so the history behind this is 2 years ago when we started the CRTC program, and we had a money management course that students were receiving math credit from and bypassing Algebra 2, impacting state assessment scores. And in addition to that, with the personal finance minimum requirements came out requiring a semester-long course.
Yeah.
So Danielle right here took a huge hit in the business department every time she turned around. We lost that math credit. A lot of students pulled out of money management when the personal finance credit was required, a state minimum requirement, but the course was reduced to a semester long. We got twice as many students enroll than we've ever had before. However, we don't have the FTE demand because it's a semester course. And then in addition to that, the students who might have taken these alternative classes in the past are now going to CRTC because what they were offering was almost a duplicate of what we offered. So what's being proposed now are new courses in the business department that we think will boost enrollment, won't be in competition with the CRTC class, and we could get back to the full 2.0 without asking you for the 2.0 of a FTE, just shuffling Mr. Canale's whole role back into the business world.
It's music to my ears.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you
It's
for that
amazing.
creative problem solving as well. We really
Yeah,
do
which
appreciate
y'all have
that.
to do on a daily basis. You understand.
Yeah, you will.
And then I believe there's a second course, or would you like a motion on the first one? How would you like to proceed?
We could do it together.
Do it
Yeah,
together?
let's do them together.
Okay.
Yeah.
The second course is Principles of Marketing. This is another semester course, 0.5 credit, offering to grades 10 through 12, so students sophomore through senior year.
Do we have that one?
Yeah, it's in
Oh,
the
there it is.
file.
First,
Yeah.
it was the
Yeah.
first
Yep.
one.
Yep. Thank you.
This one, this course hits across almost every single career pathway
Yeah.
that we have developing at the high school. Mm-hmm. We're in year 2 of that, the pathways work. So there'd be a lot of adjustment into those pathways everywhere.
Could you tell me a little bit about, in like anecdotal feedback from students, like the want for this? I'm assuming yes, is probably really popular. Yeah.
I know what I see in my classroom is I have a lot of students that are seniors and taking my business law class, taking e-commerce, entrepreneurship, and it's one of the majors that students really gravitate to at
Yeah.
the university level. And I hope they understand what goes into it, right? It's not
Yeah.
just catchy ads, it's not just cool visuals. There's so much decision making and reasoning that needs to go into it.
Yeah.
And so I really want students to have that exposure before they say, hey, I think that marketing sounds like a really great major. I want them to have this experience to solidify. And so I do hear a lot of students, that when we get to, in our business plan, there's some, the 4 Ps, the marketing mix. We skim marketing, but it's a section that students really love. So I know that I have seen just in my year and a half at CHS, it's one of the majors that students will almost kind of default to, like, I like business.
Yeah.
I want to be in that world. And I think they understand that this is there are so many jobs that are in the broader marketing field, but it's an aspect of small business life, right?
Yeah.
You need to have marketing skills, and so I see it as a huge desire for our students to have this class.
I mean, anybody that goes into a communications field,
Absolutely.
you're gonna have to take this anyway. Why not give our kiddos a leg up?
Right.
Yeah, these look awesome, you guys. I'm pumped.
And I just want to compliment it. Whenever the high school seems to bring something to us, I don't worry too much because
Yeah.
I know you've crossed your T's and dotted your I's, and the format in which you present these course proposals is so beneficial to us because questions that we might have, you've
They're already
answered.
there.
So,
Yeah.
well done as usual, Concord High. I'm really proud of you guys. And,
Yeah, I mean, I move acceptance of both of these courses.
all right, so the motion would be, and I wrote it.
Thank you for being a good chair, because I wouldn't know what to do.
To approve the principles of marketing and the sports management courses for the fall of '25 curriculum.
That's the one.
That's it. So that would be our motion.
Sweet.
So Sarah,
Yeah, Robinson firsted,
yeah.
Campbell seconded. Good job. Thanks. Words are hard this time of day, so we're working on it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Nope, it passes.
Huzzah!
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay. Thank you.
Can I take them?
Yeah, do you mind if we keep these?
Oh, no, I want to take the classes, I'm saying.
Oh yeah, that
That won't be
too.
creepy at all. I show up like
But
you
I
guys.
was like, I'm just gonna use these as a humble brag. Like, look what we did. I didn't do anything, but these folks are amazing.
Okay. Next, we are going to hear about a new music course being presented by Gabe Cohen
Oh, cool. Hello.
and guest.
Hi, friends. I can't wait to hear what you've got up your sleeve too.
Yeah. So I'm Gabe Cohen. I'm the Performing Arts Coordinator for the school district, and this is Bryn Cowett, our other music teacher at the high school, and she goes to the facilitators meeting, so we have like a kind of a shared leadership role
Nice.
in the department, which is kind of cool. But we're here to propose a new course, basically a full year course that will meet twice a week for about 45 minutes. But we want to propose an adaptive music class. We feel like we want to be more inclusive with our high school population. We do know that schools like Pinkerton, and I know that Manchester Central definitely has one of these, and I'm guessing if Central has it, the other two as well have it. But we just want to bring this up and hopefully have this opportunity at the high school. I want to let Bryn talk because she's done most of the research, but I just wanted to start with that.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, so this would be a class especially for students needing significant modifications in their curriculum. So these students are often already part of our music program, many of them in guitar class, a lot of them are in choir, and it's really awesome to see regular ed students working right next to these students that need all these modifications, and just like really working together, but I don't think they're yet able to fully access our curriculum. They're participating in choir. Maybe they don't want to just sing, or maybe they're nonverbal and they're enjoying it, but maybe they need to access music in a different way. So this class would really be for them. It'd be a new way for them to access, like deeply be able to work on their music skills. So we see this as being something where students can still work on the competencies, perform, create, connect, but in ways that modify the program for each of them. And within units of different types of musical learning. So, for instance, bucket drumming, where students can work on creating rhythms, working together, working on improv.
Me too today.
Oh my God, I had talked so much today.
I knew exactly what you meant.
But like collaborating, learning from each other. Also, maybe there's a unit on ukuleles where they can play a string instrument that is much easier to play physically, much easier than guitar, and they could play with one hand. So they're accessing a different type of musical instrument that they wouldn't be able to do maybe in a regular guitar class, or even songwriting, working on recording their voices or themselves playing and putting that into a recording together.
So cool.
With this, we see this working really well with a peer mentor model. So having just like peer-to-peer class, which works with the Access program. So we'd have musical peer mentors in the class too that would help with the instruments, that would help model the instruments, maybe help do some recording or mixing and putting songs together. So that's what we see this being as. It would basically be like a period, which I think when we talk to the special ed department, that seems like a good amount of time, 45 minutes rather than 90. And then the other half, those peer models might have a half study hall or something where they could work on music classes.
This is so cool.
Yeah.
Would both the student and the student participating and the mentor receive credit for this?
Yeah, that's what we see.
Yes.
We've talked about maybe their competencies are slightly different. So we use these overarching competencies,
Right.
but maybe the standards underneath are different for them.
Yeah, of course, of
Right.
course.
Yeah.
And I'm noticing that this is only an increase by 1 FTE, which is not outlandish. Is that something that you need us to add in?
Yes, we yes.
That's
we
okay.
know that there's budget issues, but the point one
The
is
point one's really
we
okay.
just don't want to take away from what we already have.
Of course
I think
not.
this is an important
Yeah.
thing, but we've added classes in the past and we've lost
Yeah.
other ones. So we just like to use this as an addition to our program as opposed to a replacement of something else.
Very, very cool.
And we also see this as being an additional music class for these students. We want them to stay in choir, stay in guitar class,
Yeah, of
piano
course.
class, but
Yeah.
now they get to maybe access music in a different way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is amazing. the tip of the hat to both of you. This is like, you're increasing options for every student. It's totally in alignment with our district goals. And also, like, not for nothing, those peers, those mentor peers will gain a lot from participating in this. I mean, it really does help people define what kind of work they want to do in public, you know? And if you can work with all people, you're gonna be better off, you know?
It also goes to student wellness, which is something we are always
Yeah.
concerned about, and
Building community.
building community.
Inclusion.
And, just overall well-being of our students. So.
Yeah, Kathleen?
So, finding a .1 is no easy task,
I know.
Dr. Herbert. And so, do you have a creative solution to address that?
So we currently have a .5 music teacher. We'd extend that to .6. I'm not going to speak for him. He's not here, but I don't know if he'd be interested in it. But we do know that part-time music teaching positions is actually pretty common in public education, as some programs can't afford to bring in 2 full-time FTEs.
So we'd really only be adding a 1/10.
A 1/10 of
Yeah.
a teaching position
Which
is
is
what
not
we're looking at.
impossible to
And it's a
find.
position that already exists. They would be going from .5 to .6. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
And Dr. Hebert, how many more positions are we going to be asking for this year?
To be honest with you, I just looked at Gabe and said that we actually have the .1 existing vacated right now, so we would be
Fantastic.
able
So it
to.
would not have.
Yeah, you would not be asked to give us a .1 FTE.
See, this is why we love Concord High School.
I mean, you all just check all my boxes all the time.
Mr. Fabrizio.
Just a connection in the high school, because it's something that I connect with all the time,
Oh, of
is
course.
our CRTC and our Education Behavior Science program. We have a lot of students coming out of there that are working in our schools currently as apprenticeships and coming out in the field of special ed. So I just think it's probably a good resource and opportunity for you as you think and develop this course, to maybe talk to Val and tap into those students in their senior year who are already
a
looking
great
towards that
idea.
field and that goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like maybe if they don't have the musical background, but they have that interest and background in special ed too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It'd be a great experience for someone interested in going into special ed.
yeah.
Before school. I think win-win for everybody. Thank you. Thank you for bringing us such thoughtful, well-considered proposals that really
Yeah.
benefit our students. Appreciate that.
I
Well,
move the adoption of the adaptive music class. Is that a sufficient motion?
For the fall of
For the fall of
25.
2025.
And I will second that.
Thank you. I'm learning every day. It's only taken me 2 years.
It's taken me 4, and I'm just kidding.
All right.
Did we get a second on that?
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? The motion passes 3-0. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for your hard work. This is super exciting. This is the best committee of the entire board.
I am going to say, this is one of the easiest times I've ever done this. Usually there's a barrage of questions.
I mean, we just really
can
thank you. Yeah, if you want more questions, I can come up with randos. We've got all night.
I'm good.
My 11-year-old's in the back room. She can ask you lots of questions.
Exactly. All right.
On our
We just read it? You can talk to them. Okay, that's good.
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay. I
Okay.
will read the PowerPoint of it. Hi, good evening. My name is Gabriella Visco. I work in Concord High, and I'm also in Randlet, and I teach Spanish for about 10 years, something like that. So here, and it's Wendy.
I'm Wendy Lachteam. I also teach Spanish at CHS and also Runlet, and I've been here since 2001.
Nice.
Yeah. We come over here to propose a trip to our Spanish student, because we think it's very important for them to go and speak the language and see the culture and firsthand. And I have organized, this will be my 3rd trip. And before, when I start, we went to France and Spain, and then we went even to Machu Picchu this summer in Peru. Recently we went to France and Spain with the other French teacher, Molly McRoom.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have organized 2 trips. this one will be my third one, but I have gone for 6 trips as a chaperone. And I think it's very good for the kids because they have the opportunity to speak the language, see the culture in firsthand, and I think it's great for them. So we try to do it every 2 years. So, of course, the Spanish student interested to see the culture of Spain, for her, they are invited. And normally this one is a non-school sponsored trip to Spain. Wendy can elaborate a little bit more about that. And the other thing that I would like to add, we're choosing Spain this time because Madrid and the south, because it's more cultural, than the north is more like touristic.
Yeah.
So there, and about the non-school sponsor.
So, you may be wondering why we would want to have a non-school sponsored trip. Okay, so I'm going to read one of the reasons they give us is this is because the contractual agreement for the tour is strictly between the participants and Passports the company. So the rules of the company and the laws of the country, in this case Spain, would supersede any school district rules. And so usually this is just taking, the responsibility off of the administration of the school district because it's Passports that's going to deal with whatever issues come up. So liability is completely on the company. Okay, so that's one reason.
Okay.
Another reason, historically, before either of us came to the district, this is what the trips were to Spain. They were always non-school sponsored. So basically, these trips are fun, but they're also learning experiences. There's a lot to be said for actually being in Spain, where you're surrounded by the culture and the language. And as a student, you actually have to use the language with someone who is not your Spanish teacher. You have to order your food, get your souvenirs, whatever it is. I mean, it's really good experience for them. It is also a bonding experience for them. Have just gone on one trip before as a chaperone when Gabriella had her trip to France and Spain. And by the end of the trip, the kids had formed, really tight bonds, and they all actually just had a wonderful time and really learned a lot about both France and Spain, okay? Finally, for myself, as someone who has been lucky enough to study abroad and also travel abroad, I think safety is a very big concern. And I just saw the movie Take It last night with Liam Neeson. We don't all have Brian to come rescue us should something happen. Right. So, I think that we need to make sure the kids that are going on the trip are going to benefit from the trip and also be good listeners. Because there are some situations, like if a student has never ridden the subway before, those doors open and close pretty fast, and they have to really listen. I know on the trip that we were in, when we were in, what was it?
Spain.
Where the pickpockets were.
Oh, yeah.
Our guide immediately alerted us that there were pickpockets. So we were all alerted. Everybody was listening. Everybody was focused. Nothing happened. And they saw that we knew what was happening. So they left us alone. But you have to really have kids who, yes, are there to have fun and learn, but also who are going to listen to what you say because of the safety issue. And so... so those are the reasons why that we do the non-school sponsored. Because if we know that somebody's not a good listener, we can say, sorry, this is not school sponsored, and we wouldn't want something bad to happen. So
So again, I'm gonna raise the budgetary issue with this because it's not district sponsored. This is the financial burden is taken on by the individual families.
yes, that's correct. We are not asking for any money, any staffing, nothing.
I don't even know why you need to come to us.
That's what I asked her.
But I think it's good that you
Still our
know
students.
what we're
It's
Oh,
still
for
our
sure. Yeah, I'm
students.
just teasing.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
just
If we
teasing.
could,
But
I'm
it's
focused.
very clear that you both have tons of experience. You're skilled at navigating. You know your students. When I was in my junior year of high school, I did a trip to France. The immersion allowed me to speak French so much faster in those 7 days because like your brain does something different when you feel like, oh shoot, I have to survive. Like I have to be able to communicate with people in order to get my needs met. It does something for that language comprehension that nothing else can. So huge proponent of kiddos going abroad. Go see other places. People do it different, and that's a good thing. So yeah, thank you very much for the work that you do, your commitment to the district for such a long time. I think this is awesome. I'm
Jess,
excited.
and then Superintendent Murphy.
I do have one question. I'm assuming, and I'm sure it has, but I just want to ask that the company that we be working through, they fully align with the district's values, right? As far as inclusivity and acceptance, like they're in line with.
Yeah,
Our goals.
we're working this time with a company that is called Passport, and they're very supported all the time. And yeah,
Cool.
Great.
Thank you.
yeah.
That's a good question.
Superintendent Murphy.
Thank you, Gabriella, and I talked a little bit about this, and that's the financial arrangements for students. You know, Concord is an inclusive school district, and we want all children to have opportunities for these kinds of trips. Are there any things in place that allow students that would struggle with the initial payments? And what you've done, because you've talked to me a little
Yeah.
bit about that. I'd like you to share that with the
That
board.
was my question.
Well, the trip is in April break 2026, so that's why we start 2 years before basically, and there are different way for them to pay. So they can just pay, in fall. They can pay monthly. They can do an initial payment, and then they can put any money that they can, and. The other one is, this and the same part where they have the opportunity that parents or family can contribute with the payment. That's why the trip is every 2 years. So, and this trip will be basically $200 per month if they pay like that. And we offer it to the high school because many of the kids, they're already working. And sometimes we see them that they go to Dunkin' Donuts every day, and then I say maybe they can just save a little bit in that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's something to be said, like Brenda, you've looked into potentially finding financial relief for kiddos where it's just not a possibility, right?
Right. I guess that's sort of my question. If you have a student who would benefit greatly from this experience, but doesn't have the financial means, are there any opportunities for scholarships, or are there other fundraising? What kind of things are available to students that would not normally be able to come up with the money through their families or themselves?
The other, I talked with the company. The other thing is normally is 6 kids and 1 chaperone, but they say you can reduce maybe to have 10 kids and 1 chaperone, because actually the tour guide that we have is also a chaperone. I mean, they're alone. So that will be another possibility to help with somebody that can be beneficial for that.
So that would be something you would consider if you
Right.
had such a student in mind.
Yes, if I know that is somebody very interested and it has a financial difficulties, it's something that we can to see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Superintendent Murphy, do you have any thoughts on
No,
this?
that's
You
fine.
support this? And
I do, and there have been occasions where we have had donations, and folks have been very generous in helping to fund trips. I know that last year Jay did a Washington trip, and some folks made some donations to help
Nice.
help cut down the cost of that trip for the middle school 8th graders. So I'm always looking for that, because I do think there's youngsters that want to go, but don't always have the means to do it, and I would hate to see them miss out on this.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes for all of the trips abroad.
Right.
It's not just Spain and isolation. So yeah, I think that's something I know is really important to the board, and we've talked about extensively, and will continue to pursue trying to find financial supports for kiddos to be able to have these enriching experiences without putting an undue burden on the teaching staff that's trying to plan it. So,
Right, and we take kids to Germany, and we also have a trip that's been proposed to Italy with the folks in the Latin group and an English teacher. So there's a literature in Latin.
That's right, I remember that
approach,
presentation.
Right, which is really
Yeah.
interesting. So I just that's exciting for our students.
Yeah.
But the finances can be challenging.
Oh, for sure.
Well, I don't believe this requires a vote.
No,
More of a-
but I do this because I think it's important that you know
you.
some of the kinds
Absolutely.
of things and the work that our teachers are doing. I mean, this is a lot of work for these
Extra.
two
Oh
to
my God,
put
yes.
these trips together. And
Yeah.
I always want to acknowledge that with you, and also gives you a chance to know where our kids are going
Yeah.
and the opportunities they have. It's important.
I mean, we get to brag about so much
Yeah,
stuff in this
exactly,
district, and it's
exactly.
always the teaching
Yeah,
staff.
yeah.
That's it.
So-
We're really, really lucky.
It's
So,
nice to have them here.
Yeah.
It is.
Thank you so much,
Thank
both
you.
of you.
Thank you.
Really
Thank you.
excited for
Have a
these
safe
kiddos.
and happy trip.
Yeah,
Thank you.
enjoy. We'll throw as much money as we can at you.
Aw, thank you.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Have a lovely evening.
You guys are the best.
Yeah, thank you for your hard work. This is the best committee.
Well, we could have more people.
I mean, people can just come and hang out. They don't need to be a part of it.
This is why we do what we do.
I know. This is the real stuff. This is the real stuff. Baby, what's going on?
Just frozen.
Oh.
All right, hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Mr. Fabrizio is going to talk to us about the MLL Multilanguage Learner Action Plan.
Ooh.
All right. So
Waiting on this, man. I'm so excited.
before I start, Dana Gastich-French is next to me, and Dana is from Upriver Education Associates. We've had a wonderful working relationship, and Dana has been a very strong knowledge base for our team as we've moved through this process. And it's been we kind of found each other at a conference and started talking, and it's worked out real well for us in
That's
Concord
awesome.
to bring Dana in and her knowledge of really what it means to be an educator and working with students with multilingual education. So it's been a wonderful start. In your packet tonight, you have 3 pieces that we provided you. One of them is a copy of the PowerPoint for those that don't have to turn around and face it, because I know what that's like in this room sometimes. You have to try to do both.
I'm still going to have to move. I didn't even realize it was on there.
Yeah, it's okay, but you have it in front of you. The other one is the actual plan that that we have developed for 5 years, and then something that goes back in time that we'll talk about is the English Learner Education Program Review that Dana conducted, back in 2002, 2022, 23. So it's kind of we provide the executive summary just to refresh your memory of those that weren't here and those that were here. It's good to kind of where this all comes from. So,
Cool. Great.
to start, kind of, we want to start as educators with the outcome. What do we expect tonight to put in front of you, and why are we here? It's really our rationale to support what we're doing. It's really the training, support, effective instruction for MLs in Tier 1, certified ESL teachers for all English language learners, that they're being involved in their learning, and training and policy support the cultural competencies and practices that we have in place. So that's really what today we want to talk about, those really 3 main areas, and kind of how this all relates into our plan and that we've developed. So we had a team, all right, and you'll see it's a pretty inclusive team. I was sharing with Brenda earlier that I said, once in a while you get these high moments in your year, in your month, and we finished up kind of this work, and we did kind of a last minute meeting on Tuesday just to kind of our ducks in a row, and do we all feel good about the plan going forward. And everyone around the table that you see in front of you, from multiple different roles in our district, all just commented on how we've already begun this work. What we've accomplished already. We're already making progress. And that was, and my screen just went out. I don't know why, excuse me. And it was really, really just a kind of a feel-good moment to talk about this is where we are and this is where we're going.
That's
So
awesome.
it's good.
I love that it's the very low preschool almost right up through 12th grade.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
aligned in
Yeah.
the way that we've been asking for things too. It's great.
Came back up. Oops, sorry. Oh, there we go. So, want to talk about our timeline a little bit?
Absolutely. So, hi again, I'm Dana Gastich-French, and I would concur that it's really been my pleasure to work with the district as well over this time and just, work with educators who are so willing to kind of examine practices and continually commit to improvement. So thank you. Coming up on your screen eventually, and certainly in your packet already, is a timeline of the work that we've completed thus far. So taking us back, we did start with a pretty comprehensive program review of the practices that are in place, so that we looked at data, we looked at practices, we did walkthroughs, documents, all of the above. And we were able to really highlight a lot of strengths within the program as well as areas, for growth. And so those are summarized in that executive summary. But from that plan, we sought feedback from the administrative leadership team, is that correct? As well as the English, the ESOL team, the ESOL teachers or the ML team. And then we assembled this kind of diverse group of educators from across the district so that we could really take that feedback, compile that, and build a plan that would really encompass all perspectives, which, led to a lot of conversation and really a lot of learning that not everything's consistent across the district, and that we can really learn from one another's practices and start to create a little bit more consistency as well. So within that time, within that kind of span of meetings, we started by establishing a district mission, which I'll share in just a moment, which really aligns directly to the larger district mission, so a mission specifically for multilingual learner education, which became the pillars of this action plan. So we were able to look at what was needed through the review, as well as what the team really felt was like the most kind of categorically important pieces that we could build a plan off of. So those became the pillars of our plan, which we'll look at. But as John said, team's very proud because there were many pieces that they were able to immediately get into place. I have some examples coming up of those, but they really just did. They were enthused and excited and hit the ground running with pieces that didn't require, any kind of new budgetary requests or anything of that nature. They were just able to kind of shore up some practices. So we'll get into those. For the upcoming year, we are looking to, the current year, we're in 24-25. We completed and finalized the plan, which we've presented now to you. And we've started the first phase, of which there'll be 3. And then we'll continue those over the continuing 4 years.
So our district mission that we talked about, it really was a lot of white paper and a lot of meetings of educators, leadership team, families. This was pretty much a big information gathering that we did. And we came up with 3 very simple Concord School District educators, multilingual students for lifelong success by intentionally building upon their cultural and linguistic backgrounds, providing equal opportunities and access, and fostering connection, safety, and belonging. And that was really what we decided is our mission to move forward and why we're doing this work as a team.
Awesome.
This is your favorite.
This is my favorite slide.
I feel like you should speak to this.
Well, this
unless
is
you
your
wanna
work,
okay.
though. This is your work, though. I like to
I
steal
love that
it.
you carry it forward.
He's a very enthusiastic partner.
I know,
That's for
it's
sure.
So this is something that I brought, but John has certainly kind of embraced this and it's really helped to frame, I think, that you've embraced it has really helped to frame a lot of the work. So when we think back to that mission that we created, we really recognize that we need to see this as a community effort and a shared responsibility, right? We want systems that advocate and support all learners, not individuals. And so if we can see that very important student-facing work as the center of these concentric circles, we start to recognize that all of our goals exist at all layers. We have that outer layer of kind of the larger community, which is not always within our purview. However, we can't be separated from that. So just the acknowledgement is there. And certainly that's come up a lot. I think we had a lot of conversations around what's within our nexus of control here.
Yeah.
So, and I think that in our early meetings, you've all been in those groups of people, and there's that one person that you stare at that just kind of is putting the brakes on. And that was me, and I'll admit it here. When it came to, I got nervous the farther we went out in these circles, because I said my ability to control as I go forward is harder to control the bigger you get in a system like this.
Yeah.
And when we get out into a very diverse community as we have here in Concord, it's how do we create systems that help us communicate both in and out of school.
Yeah.
And that part is outside the classroom. Like, I can control the little classroom and what happens in student facing and all those things that happen, or the schools we can do, or even at the district things we put out. But when we get outside that, that's the scary part of our work.
Yeah.
And when the team had to develop a plan, we had to think of all these circles. And that was hard work in some of the work we did.
And that's where a lot of the kind of the differing perspectives were really important, because it was a very safe place, I think, for teachers to come together with administrators, with district-wide and school-based folks, to say, we really need the support of the district on this. I can't make this happen in the classroom if the scheduling at the school level doesn't fit, or if the policy is not matching. And so I don't know what led to your shift, but he did have a little moment. Right? He was stiff-arming a little, right?
Yeah.
So, but did you want to speak to that, or?
No, I think that's where we were. It was kind of how do we work together. The nice part about this committee is it's got every people that are newer educators and really veteran educators. And it had the gamut. Some people with 30 years in Concord, some with 2. Yeah. They've brought other cultures into it, and it was nice to kind of mix and talk. And we met a lot. We met every month, sometimes twice a month, for over a course of about a year and a half. So it was,
they were committed.
And we got comfortable with each other. I think, to be able to know it was safe to not agree, and it was a good place to work. So I'll let Dana talk to this, but it really comes down to the work she brought to us that I opened with. It's really around understanding our ML education at a much higher level than I think we did in Concord when we began this work. It was that we are part of a bigger whole than we thought we were.
Can I'm really so interested in this topic because I've had conversations with Superintendent Murphy, and I'm hoping if I mention this, you can show me where it might be in here. Concerns that in our community, it seems like our students do pretty well because we really take care of them in our community, in our schools, as you said, where we can control it. And over the last 5 years or so, we have noticed when our students graduate, or when they leave Concord High or the schools that they're in and become members of the community, they end up in trouble. A lot of our multi-language learners do. And I've wondered, is it because we give too much support in the schools? We meet all the needs, we blanket everything, and then when they are released or grow into the community, all of those things seem to go away, and now they don't know how to do it on their own. So I'm hoping that when we go through this, you can show me how it's sort of almost a gradual release, so that when we're graduating these multi-language learning students, they're really able and well-suited to be successful in the community.
And we'll get to that. And-
Great,
and
thank you.
When
That's
we
what
get
I-
into the plan a little bit down,
Okay.
I
That's
want to
part of
just.
the plan then?
I want to talk about the
Okay.
bigger picture of kind of WIDA,
Yep.
and then we'll get down to
And where
those.
we've been too, so that's
Right.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I can speak to that with respect to this policy and best practice kind of marriage that we have
Right.
showing here, because this concept of shared responsibility is really working towards what your aim is. Because what we saw originally in Concord were students who were very well taken care of by a very small group of people, right? Who really felt like they had their arms around them. And they were shielding them from the community at large, right?
Yep.
The teachers were doing their best, but may not have had the full support and training to teach intentionally to this population.
Yep.
And so through all of these pieces, through all of those layers of those concentric circles, then where the idea is that with shared responsibility, the students feel more a part of the school community.
Great.
And they feel held by all of those layers.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah. So on the screen and in your slides are the WIDA. I don't know if anyone's familiar or has heard of WIDA before. Okay. This is the English Language Development Framework, essentially the standards that the state of New Hampshire has adopted for English language development. It's a consortium of about 41 states. So these standards elucidate for us best practice. They define what that English language development, not only the specific language should look like, but also practices around shared responsibility, around equity of opportunity and access. They have what they call these big ideas. So I've put some of that up there in bullets for you to see, but the plan really needed to be anchored by best practice and, of course, our obligation to the guidance from the federal and state levels. And so at the bottom, you see kind of where these meet. And the major pieces here are meaningful access to grade level, rigorous content alongside native English-speaking peers, and then explicit English language development as a core content from a certified teacher. So in our requests that come as a part of this long-term plan, you'll see that kind of reflected as the priority.
Nice.
So, and I think that one of the things when we did the plan, and we talk about those circles, we finished our final review, and Dana and I were in my office, and we sat and walked away from it, and we both almost simultaneously sent a text that night to each other and said, I'm concerned we don't have enough on student-facing about the actual instruction going back to the WIDA standards. And it was, we sent almost simultaneously text to each other around that and said, that was a concern of mine, because there's a huge piece of that, those last three bullets you'll see in the plan directly related to it, that we need to do a lot of work with our educators in district to just have, because of the nature of where Concord has been and the growth of Concord, it was primarily in certain parts of the city that we had more ML instruction, you know, and we really did, just because of the nature of the population of where it is. That's changed and grown, and now we have to change and grow with that, and that's part of the plan that we talked about. That all educators, it only takes one student, speaking their native language, who moves into your classroom, that you have to know this and be able to do this. And I think that's why the universal instruction for all of us understanding that is important.
Yeah.
And we've taken some steps to get there.
Great.
So the plan. In front of you, you have the plan, and it is broken down.
Well, yeah.
We'll go here.
Not on that slide,
It's on this,
but
right?
we do have it.
Right, you have it in front of you.
Yes.
But I just want to see if I wrote down the breakdown. But it's broken down into three pillars.
Yes.
And accessibility, all right, is the first pillar. And where is the rest of it?
I'll say those pillars are based on these bullets of the mission statement, but simply put,
Yeah.
very.
Accessibility, instruction, and fostering connection. And I have to give, I'll copy. So those are the three areas, all right? And it's in your board book. I think your packet is missing a couple of sections. I'll get those to you. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. I just noticed that.
I mean, we've got
I think they're
this.
later on.
Yeah, they're right later on, but in the actual plan I sent you, I have two sections that are missing from this. When it-
okay.
When it was copied, we didn't copy all three sections, so I will make sure that, because it was an Excel sheet and it was in three different sections.
Oh my gosh, it's such a pain in the neck.
It's just the way it printed.
Yeah.
But it's in the actual folder, in your board folder, if you
Oh,
want to look at
perfect.
that.
Thank
And I'll
you.
make it available to make sure it's in the board packet the right way, too, when it goes to the board.
Thank you.
But so, three areas: accessibility, instruction, and fostering connection. And those are really what we talked about to meet our three overarching: building upon cultural, linguistic backgrounds, providing equal opportunities for access, and fostering connection and safety in the beginning. And you'll see this is the first pillar, which I've given you. It looks like this right here. In there, we talked about kind of we started along the way of this, and you'll see that's how it's all set up with goals, action steps and objectives, measures success and outcome, timeline, who's responsible. That was a big category for us when we did this. It was like, you know what, it's great to make a nice plan, but if we don't continue to meet, we're going to continue to meet as a ML action team and monitor ourselves and say, all right, you said you were in charge of this, where are we on it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean, you volunteered for the subcommittee to work on this, where are you on this? For example, the registration process was something that's been a barrier for a lot of our families, you know, both ML and others, you know, and we didn't have an accurate, the most up-to-date accurate language survey on there. We were out of compliance with that. That's been updated for the fall. That's already happened. We have a small subgroup that you know, our communications coordinator, Terry, has worked really hard on. She's brought that to the front fold. She took that committee on, and they've made great gains. We have it in paper again that can go out to our families that may speak another language to register their child, and they can work with our home to school liaisons to go to the house and actually do it in their native language. In that. So we've made those gains already in a short time. So we're starting to get more of that accessibility happening.
Yeah, so just to continue on this line of kind of celebrating what's already happened, these are here under the phase 1 bullets. John mentioned that registration process. Also inclusive is an area where the district was not in compliance in terms of a home language survey that had all of the elements it needed and was consistently administered, and now that is in place. It was really that it was not integrated enough into the registration system, which it is now. The data systems to track student data accurately and really help everyone know who is who needs what, so we can intentionalize our instruction, et cetera, have set up really well. Power School had an update that's really been helpful for that, and it's speaking to Elevation, the data platform for our English learners.
So Elevations is it's kind of a Power School of our ML students is what it is. It aligns with WIDA. It talks about their acquisition of language and what level they fall on. It's a very helpful tool to have in the hands of our educators. That they have a student in a class, they can look up in Elevations, look at their scores. What does that mean for instructional purposes? And it has ideas and thoughts and areas of places to take that child and where for that child to grow. It's right in there. It's like an online toolkit for them around ML education. And we are going to launch, we started to launch at the high school. That's our first, the ML team has had it now for a little over a year. And we struggled with getting the data accurate, but I think we're there. And then now we're going to take and move it to the whole high school. So the high school ML team is going department by department and training all the educators in the core areas on how to use this program and then how to look up their kids and be able to do it. So each year when they get their class list, we'll have a link to say, you know, we identify them in Power School. They'll be able to go right over to Elevations and look up their child and the profile of that child. And it'll have historical data back to when they were first entered the school district. So it's it'll show their growth and it'll show the areas of needs. Right in Elevations.
Yeah. And it also helps with compliance. It has monitoring forms built in, which are part of the process for monitoring former English learners. It has parent letters, you know, so that all the notifications are up to date. And so as they develop their usage of this, it will build in more efficiency around kind of a lot of human resource time, to kind of copy letters, add letters, it populates those. So that will be an efficiency.
So in our plan, we also put a place in there about estimated financial impact, which means budget. And in there what there is. It's a 5-year plan, and over the 5 years you'll see. So there is in there our next steps in phase 1 really has to be certified student-facing ESOL teachers in all buildings. Like, we have to look at that, and that may necessarily not mean addition. It may be just reshuffling at this point, because we do have variance in different levels of where it's declined in certain places, increased in others. So we're going to look at that before I come forward. I'll have a conversation with Kathleen about where we stand in that. We're still looking at that now, but there's some shifting, and some of that has to do with the high school completing their classwork and looking at that too, and all the scheduling that has to happen. Then we got to look at do we have an ability to shift? And we've done some shifting this year that I think we were talking about prior to this meeting with some of our home to school liaison supports already in our tutors. So I think that we'll ongoing doing that. And then there's a lot of PD. So I think that hopefully our relationship with Dana continues, and in Upriver, and she doesn't get too big for us, and we can still keep working together, and that ongoing professional development. Teachers, Dana has presented at 5 of our PD days over the last 2 years, and she'll be here again in March to work with our EL team, our ML team, excuse me, and also with the high school team. So it's kind of we have to keep that going. That's a big underpinning for me about that student-facing piece of this plan. It's got to be strong there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that cuts back to that conversation, and Brenda, your point about the shared responsibility, right? Can we ensure that the first time around students are gaining access to that content, so that we're not considering if they have a special education need because they weren't getting access, so that we're not asking ESOL teachers to duplicate instruction, but rather they're building their English, right? So that will include kids more, but also be essentially a savings if we can get this right.
So,
key takeaways. So we started with this program review that you see sort of pictured here. We really synthesized the key takeaways from the program review and put them into this plan. The plan really does consider best practice and compliance, as we said, which will prepare the district for the likelihood of a state audit. It's my understanding that it's been a decade since the state has looked at Title III. So a number of districts with whom I work were under state audit last year. There was a big wave. So I'm not going to be surprised if that comes around soon. So this is positioning you very well, even if the pieces are not fully in place, that you have a plan for them is going to, and they're aligned to the federal and state guidance, is going to put you in a really nice position for this.
Amazing.
So I'm hoping that the state is talking to each other, and I'm going through right now program evaluation review for special education.
They
So
usually come in pairs.
I am hoping they are kind to me, and
When it rains, it
they
pours, John.
may wait a year, but that's my pitch if anyone's listening from the Department of Education.
Because they weren't done with work when they left it earlier.
Right.
Excited to have you.
So this is a lot. It's a 5-year plan. It has a lot of components to it. I think I just want to, before we get to questions, I just want to say one of the things that you'll see really in our accessibility pillar is really enhancing and strengthening our connection to the community and doing some of that. It really is building with stakeholders. Fernsiden right now has been working with Overcomers and doing a lot of work around around doing community forums around what's missing and what do we have to do to support the needs of our families out in the community. That's part of our big grant that we got, and that's one of the things that we're doing and working on that connection. So I think, Brenda, to your question about what do we do to help do that, we start early and we start building those connections so they're strong and they have more accessibility to some of the other programs we have in district. So they are coming out in career pathways ready for the workforce. So they have purpose, and that's kind of what we have to do to start
I
building
think
it.
that's it. They need to have purpose.
Yeah, and where they fit within the community as
And
part of
options.
this, yeah. And
Like everybody. We
it
all
can be
need
a
options.
choice. I do have, are we prepared for the question?
We have
portion?
questions now.
First, this has been a significant undertaking, and I really appreciate that our district consistently wants to be ahead of the game and wants to perfect our skills, get our teachers to, or our educators, because it's not just a classroom teacher, get our educators up to speed on what's going to make us the most competitive district with the best kiddos going out into the community. We do have current issues with, as one of the few cities in the state that accept new people immigrating to the U.S., we have folks of all ages coming in, and it's wonderful to get them when they're little, and they're still in those like really malleable stages. They're super adaptable, but we do have kiddos that show up that are thrown into a high school situation. They probably never had formal education before, and I know anecdotally, right, that some kiddos are just kind of, because we don't want to isolate them from the population, because that's not our goal. We need them integrated. But they're getting into a situation in a classroom where they're not understanding necessarily what their teacher is trying to get to them, and then there's no one at home who can translate for homework. So we do have, that's a significant leap, and a lot of kids are successful because they have an incredible work ethic and they do have strong support systems at home. How are we, as part of this audit, or is there any low-hanging fruit? You mentioned things that are easy to transition to right away. How are we helping those kiddos right now in a more effective way than we've been able to in the past? I know that's a super loaded and like weedy question. So if you want to keep it like 30,000 feet, by all means.
I'll talk about, I'll go through my layers. Student facing. I think that's where I think my mind just went there. And student facing, what are we doing? First of all, as I talked about personnel, that I want to watch it and look at it before I start asking. I always want to do that and see what it is. Our numbers have been lower at the high school for those situations you just described. And
we don't have a huge influx of people at this point.
And I haven't looked at that personnel, devotion right now where their numbers have significantly decreased over the years. One, because we're doing really, really good work at the elementary school when it comes to we've talked about that at the board level, how many kids have graduated out of the WIDA kind of scale, and we've talked about that and the huge celebrations we've had at some of our buildings around that. So one is, we're working really well there, which means as kids go through the system, we're good. However, we do have kids that move in. Just last week we did. We have a full-time dedicated social worker for that reason, student facing, and that's why she's maintained there. We have another home in ROOP, our home to school liaison, who also works with that culture and with the families in and out of school. So we've kept a high number of staff there for those situations to really wrap around right away. We have two ELL teachers and two reading specialists that are dedicated for this population at the high school. And it's to say that you can't put a level on caseloads for something like that because they vary and do that. So that's some of the struggle we've had, is saying, like, do we make some moves? Do we leave it there because of those situations? But we're watching trends and doing that. So for that kid that moves in, they are wrapped around right away. One in the community with ROOP and doing that. Who's the family? We have very good connections with Accentrio when they move into it and doing that. And again, I said it before, get them into a career pathway, and let's start finding opportunities for them to get some skills in doing that. If it's through finding opportunities for extended learning opportunities, all those things that Tim has really been preaching about doing.
Yeah.
So kids, although they may have struggled the academic part of it, let's find other parts that they're very strong in because they are capable. They're just not capable in our language yet.
Right. Yeah, they're bright kids. There's
Right.
just that one barrier that they've
Right.
that we have to overcome together.
Right.
Thank you
Right.
for addressing that. I
Yep.
appreciate it. It's just a conversation that I know has been sort of like simmering
Yep.
underneath.
Yeah.
But it was happening. That conversation came to me before you started looking
Yeah.
at all of this and creating what looks like a really robust and thoughtful and inclusive plan.
Another strength, just to speak to that question, that I saw during our analysis here was some of the co-teaching practices happening at the high school, and I was able to observe in a classroom. It was a science classroom with several newcomers, and so the science teacher, I want to say it was chemistry, and the ELL teacher really worked in tandem to kind of help inform one another and build each other's practices, right? So that when she's not there, now this content teacher has new skills.
Yeah.
And that was a really helpful way. So I would say the more you can support those kinds of practices, which are challenging, right? To see two educators in the same room at the same time sometimes feels wasteful, but it's impactful, right? So we
Yeah.
have to look at kind of large scale. So where that's happening, it was working very well.
Yeah, no, thank you for adding that. I just know, the community's going to talk about what the community wants to talk about.
Yeah.
So I felt it was
Yeah.
important that you got an opportunity to address
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
thank you.
You said something earlier that is a former teacher in the district made me think, and my time teaching here was many years ago at this point, but that the primary responsibility of the multilanguage learning teacher is to teach the language, and the classroom teacher is to teach content. And I have to be honest, I'm not sure I always thought of it that way.
This is the one of the core kind of areas where we lack clarity in this work.
Yeah.
Yes. And role
I
definition.
kind of thought they did it all, and we
Yes,
we
yes.
introduced them to what it's like to
Yeah.
be part of a community in a classroom, and you do phys ed and gym with us, but you're going to learn everything else outside of the
Right.
classroom, and so I think that that's a really important distinction to make sure we're getting across to our educators at all levels, is that there's two separate things here, and like you said, working together.
Yeah.
Because also the multilanguage learning teacher probably learned some content stuff that
They
might
do a
not.
lot of
So
content,
we can
and then-
learn from
yes.
each other, and I can see why that would feel wasteful, but so important.
Right? Yeah, like essential.
Yeah, and it really is. I think, Dana, this is a tier 1 intervention. It is not, and we talk
even
about
an
our.
intervention, right?
It's not even an intervention. It's tier 1.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It is part of your instruction and part of your thing. It is not a, so-called student service. It falls under my realm just
Right.
because of my, my background at work. But that's a whole nother conversation, not for tonight. But it really is part of who we are and what we are.
Yeah.
It's not a separatist.
But in
And-
being honest, I think it's important that we recognize our educators may not understand that.
right.
And
Yes.
I think that's sort of the barrier that is reflected in that community conversation, right? Is just not an understanding of how that partnership ultimately makes the classroom better for everyone.
Yes.
But it's an embarrassment of riches in this district. We have talented, skilled, compassionate educators. Moving through this is not going to be a reach. Folks
Yeah.
are ready for it.
Yep.
It's wonderful.
And Dana's, like I said, Dana's presented 5 times, and they've been. It's been a full crowd when she's
Your
come
reputation precedes you. I've heard wonderful
thank
things
you.
about you and your
Sure,
work
that's good.
from the people who've participated in this.
Oh,
like,
excellent.
Yeah.
Dana's a real one.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries.
But they are ready and they're curious. And
Yeah.
yes, that identity piece is something that is a shift. But once it clicks, it's powerful.
Very-
Yeah.
I can see that. Well, thank you
Right.
very, very much.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
taking the
Thank you.
time, both of you, and please extend our thanks to this group, because this doesn't happen with just two, it's many minds. I know what it's like to run a committee and get to an end goal, and it is no easy feat. So thank you for joining us on this effort, Dana. It's clear that you've made a great impact, and that you've really helped us get to a place where we wanted to be. And thank you, John, for spearheading yet another analysis of a department in our district. Thank
What's
you.
next?
He needs a break. He needs to just do one job instead of 8.
Lovely to
Is
meet
there
you all.
anything else today?
Thank you.
No, I just want to make a comment, though. I think this is a beautiful example. When I hear people talk about the enrollment in Concord has dropped, and yet we have, expenditures. And this is one of the reasons. When you meet the needs of youngsters, wherever they are,
Right.
whether it's language or whether it's academics, physical, social, emotional, the reason why this happens is because there are staff here to support our youngsters. And so you think, well, the numbers have dropped. We've lost a few students here in over the last 10 years. But when you have to have this kind of support in order for kids to be successful and leave us and go out into the community, you have to do this. And,
Yep.
and I think that's a good way for you to explain that when you have your constituents ask you, well, how come, that the budget is high and yet your enrollment's dropped? We've heard that, and this is an
I'll get an
example
argument for
of
that.
this work to get where you need to get is going to take people, and people in our budget is, as you know, most of our budget, right? So that's
That's
my
a really
closing
good
thought.
point. Thank you for
It
sharing.
is.
Because I hadn't really thought about it that way, but it's true. Yes, we may have fewer students, but our needs are bigger.
Right. And we don't always represent all of the communities in the state. Our demographics, which is awesome, and it's the best part of Concord, right?
It is.
And yet we're very different, so we can't be compared to districts that may not have to delve into this as maybe some do, like Manchester and Nashua certainly do, we do. And there are a few other communities, but it's important for you to realize that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, improved practices. When you know better, you do better. And guess what? Teaching a human being costs money.
Yeah.
A lot of it.
All right. Well, thank you
you.
very much. Have a great
Thank you
evening.
both so much. It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Dana. I
Yeah,
really have
likewise.
heard wonderful things about you.
And with that, we'll make a motion to adjourn. I will make a motion to adjourn. Can I get a second?
I will second it.
Everyone in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you for attending.
And we have 2 capable young people to help us clean up.
Fantastic.
Oh, wunderbar. This was such a good meeting. I